How was your commute to work today? Okay, we get it, many of you work remotely, but you've surely used some form of transportation recently, and chances are something annoyed you along the way. Perhaps the road felt too long. We bet that's nothing compared to the Pan-American Highway, the longest road in the world, stretching a staggering 30,000 kilometers from the freezing cold of Alaska to the sweltering heat of Argentina. Yep, it's a real route across continents and climate zones. Or perhaps you were recently stuck in traffic. Admittedly, that's always unpleasant. But back in 2010, Beijing drivers spent 12 days trapped in a 100-kilometer traffic jam on the Beijing-Tibet Expressway, a record that's hard to even wrap your head around. Or maybe you've witnessed 3,000 pedestrians simultaneously crossing an intersection, just like on an ordinary day at the famous Shibuya crossing in Tokyo. But all of this seems like minor inconveniences compared to roads that really send your heart racing, where one wrong step can be your last. Today, we'll take you to places where getting from point A to point B is a genuine life or death challenge that tests even the most experienced drivers. What makes these roads so dangerous? Why do locals continue to use them despite the risks? And what terrifying stories these routes are hiding? You'll learn about all this and much more in today's video. The top 10 most dangerous roads in the world. Buckle up tight and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to see more interesting content. Take a look at this narrow, winding road that seems to cling to sheer cliffs. On one side, a dense wall of tropical forest. On the other, an abyss over 600 meters. This winding road stretches for 64 kilometers, 40 miles. It's traveled by trucks and even passenger buses, their headlights seemingly peering into the bottomless void. No barriers, no safety nets, just one wrong turn of the steering wheel and it's all over. It's not hard to imagine what would happen if fog were added to the mix. This isn't a scene from an action-packed thriller, but the reality of one of the deadliest roads in the world, located in Bolivia's North Yungas region. Every year, hundreds of people take on this challenge. And it's indeed a challenge because calling it simply a trip doesn't quite do it justice. Here, at over 3,000 meters above sea level, a narrow path just 3 meters wide desperately clings to the steep cliffs. On the other side lies the bottomless abyss, where some vehicles have met their end. This road is officially called Camino de los Yungas, but among locals it has earned a grim nickname, the Death Road. And rightfully so. Consider this, until the mid-1990s, 200 to 300 people lost their lives here each year. Buses overloaded with passengers and trucks packed with goods frequently tumbled off the edge, becoming part of the road's frightening history. One can't help but ask a reasonable question. How did such a dangerous path come to be? Couldn't the road have been built in a safer place? The short answer, no, it couldn't. Constructed in the 1930s by Paraguayan prisoners of war, the road served as the sole connection between La Paz, Bolivia's de facto capital, and the tropical Yungas regions. Built under extreme conditions, the narrow cuts into the cliffs and lack of modern construction technology made building the road an extraordinarily risky endeavor. And traveling here has always been like playing Russian roulette. For example, in 1983, a bus overloaded with passengers plunged into the abyss, taking over 100 lives. This event remains one of the most tragic in the road's history. Since then, stricter safety regulations have reduced the number of fatalities, but the risk remains ever present. It's also remarkable that this road was the only one until the early 21st century. An alternative route was finally opened in 2006, and locals aptly call it the New Yungas Road or the New Road to Coro Rico. This route was specifically designed to reduce the number of accidents in North Yungas. This new road is far safer thanks to its asphalt surface, wider lanes, and barriers along steep sections. think the deadly Camino a los Yungas has been abandoned since then? Not at all. The Death Road remains popular. Locals often take it to shorten their route, and it continues to serve as a vital transport artery for the region. Additionally, it draws in many thrill seekers. After all, it's not only one of the most dangerous roads in the world, but also one of the most stunning. Spectacular views of lush green valleys, wild waterfalls, and clouds seemingly within arm's reach captify and terrify visitors at the same time. Each year, around 25,000 daredevils from all over the world come to experience it. And while just looking at this road can send chills down your spine, here you risk nothing more than plummeting into the abyss. Nothing more? Well, yes, because there are roads where danger lurks at every step. And now we'll take a virtual stroll along one such road. No need to leave South America for this one. We're headed to Brazil. The road with the unassuming name BR-116 is almost a twin to the Camino a los Yungas from the previous segment. After all, it's also called the Death Highway, or in Portuguese, Rodovia da Morte. You might be wondering what earned this modern wide highway such a grim nickname. Indeed, BR-116 is no narrow mountain road clinging to cliffs. It is, in fact, a federal highway and the longest road in Brazil, stretching 4,542 kilometers, 2,822 miles. It connects one of the country's largest metropolises, Fortaleza, to the southern city of Jaguaro. So what's the problem? No high mountain passes, no chasms, no icy slopes. The main threat here is the road itself. Narrow lanes, lack of markings on some parts, blind turns, and steep slopes. Add this to torrential rains that turn the road into a slippery hazard, and you have one of the planet's most grim statistics for fatal accidents, sometimes involving mass casualties. For example, in 2011, a passenger bus collided with a truck in the southern part of BR-116, resulting in over 20 fatalities. According to statistics, more than 1,000 people die on this highway every year. The section in Rio Grande do Sul is particularly harrowing. It's a zone of sharp turns, narrow bridges, and reckless speeds. Each year, this area sees the highest number of fatal accidents. In the northern regions, the chaos takes on a whole different level: poor lighting, washed-out roads, and crime. Yes, crime. And here we come to the most terrifying aspect: robbery. Theft, and even kidnappings are grim realities that truck drivers, tourists, and local residents face on the northern and central stretches of the highway. In the most remote sections where lighting is scarce and patrols are almost non-existent, criminals often set up ambushes. They create obstacles, such as fallen trees, and wait for unsuspecting victims, often robbing them violently. In one such incident in Bahia in 2020, criminals attacked a truck carrying electronics, stealing goods worth over $200,000. The driver was seriously injured. Truck drivers are among the primary victims. BR-116 is a key transport artery, carrying tens of thousands of tons of goods daily. This makes trucks a primary target for organized gangs. They often operate in groups, using motorcycles or cars to block the road. In 2021 alone, over 150 major attacks on truck drivers were reported on BR-116, most involving violence or threats at gunpoint. Passenger cars on BR-116 also become easy prey. Criminals threaten drivers with weapons, steal their vehicles, and either sell them whole or dismantle them for parts on the black market. Stopping at roadside parking areas is especially risky. Attacks often occur here. In one such incident in Minas Gerais, a tourist who resisted a robbery was tragically killed. The most dangerous time to travel on BR-116 is between midnight and 4 a.m. In some areas, people prefer to avoid the highway entirely during these hours and wait until morning. It's simply safer this way. And now, to discover the next entry on our list of the world's most dangerous roads, we're leaving South America and heading far, far north. We're in Alaska. All around us is a snowy wilderness where an icy wind cuts through the air. An endless road known as the James Dalton Highway lies ahead. but don't be fooled. It's one of the harshest and most dangerous roads in the world, capable of turning a car into a pile of scrap metal in just one day. The James Dalton Highway, or simply the Dalton, spans 666 kilometers, 414 miles. Oh yes, the infamous Devil's Number, which feels eerily fitting here. The highway begins near Fairbanks and ends on the Arctic Ocean's edge in Deadhorse, a tiny town where winter temperatures plummet to -50 degrees Celsius. The Dalton was built in 1974 to provide access to oil fields in northern Alaska. Today, it remains the primary route for transporting goods to the region, with 85% of vehicles on the road being trucks. If you've ever watched ice road truckers, you'll know that the drivers who conquer this route are real-life heroes. What makes this road so dangerous? Let's start with the obvious: the weather. In winter, snowstorms reign supreme, reducing visibility to zero in an instant. The road becomes a real ice rink, where even the most experienced drivers can easily lose control of their vehicles. And in summer, surprise, endless rains transform the highway into a muddy swamp that any vehicle's wheels can sink in. Next up, the road's condition, or rather the lack of proper condition. About 70% of the highway is gravel. No asphalt, no guardrails, no shoulders. And of course, its remoteness from infrastructure. This is one of the most remote roads in the United States. There are only 3 towns along the route: Coldfoot, with a population of 34 people, Wiseman, with 12 people, and Deadhorse, with 25 permanent residents. You can refuel at only 3 places: the E.L. Patton Yukon River Bridge at mile 56, Coldfoot, or Deadhorse. And that's it. There's also Prospect Creek and Galbraith Lake, but these megacities are virtually abandoned except for occasional tourists or short-term residents. If you get stranded, break down, or have an accident, you're on your own. Cell service is virtually non-existent, and the nearest help could be hundreds of miles away. According to local authorities, about 100 serious accidents occur on this highway annually, and many of them are fatal. In one infamous case, a fuel truck skidded off the road during a snowstorm. Rescuers didn't reach the driver until several days later, by which point it was too late. There's a golden rule on this road: make way for any truck you see here. The rigs of long-haul truckers are so massive and heavy that even the slightest collision could be fatal. Despite all this, the James Dalton Highway continues to attract tourists, photographers, and of course, drivers eager to test their limits. Here, you can see the majestic nature of Alaska: snow-covered mountains, vast plains, and if you're lucky, even the northern lights. But remember, if you decide to take on this road, make sure your vehicle is ready for the most severe tests. Dalton does not forgive mistakes. It's not just a road, it's a test of your nerves, skills, and survival instincts. And now, to discover another perilous road, we'll head to the exact opposite side of the planet: New Zealand. Welcome to Skipper's Canyon, a place where nature and fate seem to have conspired to test drivers' courage. This breathtaking gorge stretches about 22 kilometers and is located just a few miles north of Queenstown. The Shotover River has carved through this gorge as if with a surgeon's scalpel. Its course sometimes runs along literally vertical cliffs. It seems physically impossible to even create a walking trail here, let alone an actual road. But what's this? Have we somehow stumbled into Bolivia's Death Road again? No, this is actually Skipper's Road, a route that stands out for its breathtakingly beautiful landscapes and a complete disregard for safety. Skipper's Road is predominantly a narrow, single-lane track with steep cliffs plunging hundreds of feet below. At times, the road feels like a world turned upside down. On one side, a towering cliff hangs ominously overhead, while below, it seems to vanish under your feet. It's better not to look down, or you might feel dizzy. And yet, it's impossible not to look down, as the road will not forgive even the smallest mistake. Why? Well, first because of the road's width. If you're lucky, your car and an oncoming vehicle might just squeeze past each other. But more often than not, one driver will have to reverse, sometimes for kilometers. Imagine inching your way along a nerve-wracking stretch of road. already regretting your decision to come here. Now imagine having to retrace that same stretch in reverse. Road pavement? Forget about asphalt. Here, it's gravel, rocks, and dust. No barriers, no guardrails. Add to that narrow turns that challenge even the most seasoned drivers. It's so treacherous here that rental car insurance doesn't cover this road. Skipper's Road is the only road in New Zealand with this perk from insurance companies, a clear sign they know something we don't. But why build a road here, right along those vertical cliffs? The reasons are similar to those for Bolivia's Death Road. However, Skipper's Road was constructed even earlier, at the end of the 19th century. The mountainous terrain didn't offer many alternative routes, and the main driver behind its construction was the pursuit of wealth. Back then, these lands were at the epicenter of a gold rush. The Shotover River was rich with gold, and miners, desperate to get wealthy, took unimaginable risks to transport their equipment deep into the canyon. The road became a testament to their persistence and, simultaneously, their tragic fates. Today, remnants of that era are scattered everywhere. Old bridges, miners' cabins, and the famous Skipper's Bridge, a major local landmark. But to be honest, you probably won't spend much time admiring the scenery. The odds of becoming a tragic statistic are too high if you lose focus for even a moment. And now it's time to move on. Our next stop on the top 10 most dangerous roads in the world takes us to the Himalayas, the highest mountains on Earth. Let's take an unforgettable journey along the legendary Leh-Manali highway and the equally epic Dzogila Pass. Why so much hype? Oh, trust me, it's well deserved. These roads will make your heart race and your hands grip the steering wheel for dear life. High altitudes, extreme weather, and perilous twists along sheer cliffs come together to create a thrilling cocktail of danger and beauty. The Leh-Manali Highway is 428 kilometers, 266 miles of pure adrenaline. The road connects the Indian cities of Leh and Manali, passing through 5 mountain passes, each towering higher than the Alpine peaks. To be precise, this highway crosses some of the highest passes in the world, including Baralacha La at 4,892 meters, Lachalang La at 5,059 meters, and Tanglang La at 5,325 meters. To put this into perspective, Mont Blanc, the highest peak in Western Europe, stands at 4,809 meters. That means here, vehicles drive far higher than climbers scale alpine peaks with full gear. On this road, literally everything seems to work against you. First, weather conditions. In summer, heavy rains frequently turn the road into a muddy trap. In winter, snow engulfs everything, and the highway closes from October onward. Sudden snowfalls before the official closure are not uncommon, making every trip a gamble. Second, road surface. No comments here. Let's just say it's far from ideal. A mix of rocks, gravel, and dust often leaves even the toughest off-road vehicles helpless. And finally, altitude. And we are not just talking about the danger of falling off the edge. That goes without saying. At such altitudes, your body might suffer from altitude sickness. Dizziness, nausea, and weakness are quite common among the unprepared. Surprisingly, the most dangerous pass isn't the highest. Dzogila lies between Srinagar and Leh at an altitude of 3,528 meters. It is one of the most infamous and terrifying passes in the Himalayas. On certain sections, the road becomes so narrow that it barely qualifies as a road and feels more like a trail. Now, imagine that this tiny trail is shared not only by off-road vehicles, but also by trucks and herds of yaks. Yes, really. Deep ravines without barriers on every sharp turn add a heavy dose of adrenaline to the mix. In winter, massive snowdrifts completely block the pass. The road only reopens in spring after local authorities deploy bulldozers to make it passable. But even these machines sometimes struggle with densely packed snow and ice, requiring explosives to clear the way. But even during the best season, there's always a risk of plunging into an abyss or getting hopelessly stuck in mud hundreds of kilometers from the nearest town, with no mobile signal. The weather can change drastically in a matter of minutes, and as if that's not enough, landslides and rockfalls are common here. Even a light rain can send rocks tumbling onto the road. Every year, thousands of people attempt to conquer these routes. Unfortunately, not everyone succeeds. But despite dangers, these roads continue to attract tourists. The reason is the magnificent views of snow-capped peaks and legendary Tibetan monasteries they offer. And now, we move from the daunting Himalayan passes not too far away to China, where another deadly route awaits us. If you're looking for a road where every mile challenges your courage and endurance, welcome to the Sichuan-Tibet Highway. This is not just a route, it's a promise of an epic journey through some of the most rugged and stunning landscapes in the world. The road begins in Chengdu, Sichuan province, and ends in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. The road stretches 2,142 kilometers, 1,331 miles. And here's your first puzzle. How do you survive a road that climbs above the clouds one moment and disappears into dense fog the next? What is the highway famous for? The Sichuan-Tibet Highway offers two routes, the northern route and the southern route. Both are equally challenging yet unique in their own ways. Northern route, longer but more stable in terms of weather. Southern route, shorter but requires even more patience due to winding roads and frequent rock falls. Both routes pass through towering mountain passes, reaching altitudes of 5,000 meters, just shy of the Himalayan record holders. Here, altitude sickness is a real threat for the unprepared. But challenges don't end here. Dangers lurk at every turn and can strike unexpectedly. The main challenge here is the weather. Sudden snowstorms, torrential rains, and gale-force winds can catch you off guard at any time. Besides, there can be landslides and rockfalls. These phenomena occur with alarming frequency. Road sections are often blocked by stones, and every twist and turn can bring an unpleasant surprise. Having no guardrails is also alarming. After all, what did you expect? Most of the road runs along steep mountain slopes, but there are almost no guardrails that could prevent a plunge into the abyss. To be fair, some sections of the highway have been reconstructed and improved, now appearing quite safe and even presentable. But this is more the exception than the rule. The history of the road is quite dramatic. Construction began in the 1950s when China sought to strengthen its presence in Tibet. The work was carried out under incredibly difficult conditions, and many builders lost their lives during construction. Today, the road is more than just a transport artery. It's a symbol of Tibet's connection with the rest of China. However, accidents are something that happen regularly here. Only Chinese authorities seem to know accurate statistics on fatal accidents along this highway. And now, we move on to the next destination in our journey through the world's most dangerous roads. This one isn't too far away, on Russia's Far East. The R504 Kolyma Highway is a federal road connecting the cities of Nizhny Bestyak and Magadan. Stretching 2,032 kilometers, 1,262 miles, the highway traverses some of the coldest regions on the planet. Here, temperatures can drop to negative 60 degrees Celsius in winter, while in summer they can soar to plus 30 degrees Celsius, turning the route into an icy hell or a sticky quagmire. The road's haunting nickname, the Road of Bones, only adds to its grim reputation. It sounds like a sinister warning, and rightly so. This isn't just an important transport route. It's a somber monument to human suffering and nature's harshness. The history of this highway is steeped in pain. Construction began in 1932 during the Stalinist repressions. The work was carried out by the Gulag prisoners, many of whom died from hunger, cold, disease, and brutal labor conditions. The bodies of the deceased were often buried directly under the road, turning every mile of the highway into a mass grave. Locals still believe that the road's name literally reflects its essence. It is said that up to 1 million human remains rest beneath the R504's surface. Even today, this road can cause much suffering or even kill you. Why? First, because of the weather. Kolyma is a land of fierce winters. If your engine fails on this highway in winter, it would be almost impossible to survive. Second, because of remoteness. The road stretches for miles without a single gas station, cafe, or phone. Even mobile coverage is rare. And of course, because of the road surface, most of the highway is covered in gravel, which becomes a muddy mess in summer and an icy rink in winter. Guardrails along cliffs? Forget it. The conditions are perfect for accidents. And then, as the cherry on top, you may encounter wild animals like bears, wolves, and moose. These creatures sometimes wander onto the road, adding another layer of danger. Another tragic incident occurred in 2021 when a truck carrying equipment skidded off a cliff due to an icy patch on the road. The driver was unable to escape the cabin and died before rescuers arrived. This road promises little but trouble. And now we leave the cold of Siberia behind and head to another part of the world, to warm Taiwan, where another dangerous route awaits, ready to set your heart racing. This stunning location is called Tooco Gorge, and the road that winds through its steep cliffs is officially known as the Zhongbu Cross Island Highway. However, most people simply call it Tooco Gorge Road. Why did we call it unique? Well, there are several reasons, and we'll start with the location itself. Tooco Gorge is one of the few places in the world where you'll see massive marble cliffs. Yes, marble. This stunning transformation began 230 million years ago, when this area was the ocean floor. Giant layers of chalk turned into limestone, and under the pressure of rocks, into marble. Today, thanks to tectonic plate movements and the forces of wind and water, we see deep gorges with sparkling white, gray, and green marble walls against the backdrop of lush greenery. Now, let's get back to the road. What else makes it special? The road stands out because it looks like a normal road. Unlike most of the other entries in our list, this one has proper asphalt, lane markings, and barriers. While these improvements are reassuring, they don't make the road entirely safe. Stretching 118 kilometers, 73 miles, the road runs from the town of Xinchang in the east to Renai in the west. It's literally carved into the cliffs. Though well constructed, it remains quite narrow, and this limited space is constantly contested by pedestrians, scooters, cars, and massive tourist buses. But that's just the beginning of the problems. During the rainy season, any section of the road can be quickly blocked by branches and debris. Rocks, or even entire rock slides, can tumble down without warning, especially during storms. Adding to the danger is the region's seismic activity. Even on a clear day, landslides or falling rocks can occur unexpectedly. Sure, you've heard this before in our coverage of other dangerous roads, but Tooco Gorge Road has another surprise for you. Dozens of single-lane tunnels, and many of them are completely unlit. Imagine what happens when a tourist bus enters one of these tunnels. Everyone coming from the opposite direction has to give way. But how? There's nowhere to go, with cliffs on one side and an abyss on the other. Despite all these difficulties, the road remains heavily used by both tourists and locals. Trucks carrying goods and dump trucks transporting the very marble extracted from the surrounding cliffs often travel this route. Now, get ready for another mountain road that will surely impress you. This time, we're heading back to mainland China. In the heart of China's Hunan province lies one of the most breathtaking places on the planet, Tianmen Mountain. Its name is translated as Heaven's Gate, and if you think it sounds beautiful, wait until you see the road that leads to these gates. The winding road, officially known as Tongtian Avenue or Road to the Sky, is an 11-kilometer, 7-mile stretch of concentrated adrenaline. It features a staggering 99 sharp turns, and the number is no coincidence. In Chinese culture, 99 symbolizes eternity, and here it may feel like the twists truly go on forever. What makes this road so dangerous? First, as you might expect from this video, the width of the road is a major factor. It's so narrow that drivers literally balance between the rock and the abyss. In some places, the distance between your wheels and the edge of the cliff is just a few inches. And although barriers are installed along the road, don't be fooled. They seem more decorative than protective. Second, the gradient. The road climbs from an altitude of 200 meters to 1,300 meters above sea level. This steep ascent not only tests the power of your vehicle, but also your ability to focus. One wrong move of the steering wheel, and you could find yourself over the edge. And what about the weather? The weather here is a true wild card. You might start your journey under a clear blue sky, only to find yourself enveloped in dense fog halfway up that obscures everything around you. If it starts raining, the road transforms into a real drift track. But the real highlight of this route is buses. Yes, you can rely on local drivers to reach the mountain's summit. But if you're expecting a relaxing ride, think again. These masters of their craft hurtle along the road at speeds that will leave your hands trembling, your mouth dry, and send your heart racing towards your lower back. What awaits at the end of the road? At the top, not only will you find breathtaking views, but also the famous Heaven's Gate Cave, a massive 131-meter-high arch in the mountain. It is one of China's most significant spiritual sites, and reaching it is considered a test of one's willpower. But if after the Tianmen mountain road you still crave some adrenaline, there's more waiting for you. You can walk along a glass bridge clinging to the vertical cliffside. You've likely seen videos of people freezing in terror, unable to take another step, their faces expressing a cocktail of emotions. Well, now's your chance to become the star of one of those videos. And with that, we're off to the final destination on our journey through the world's most dangerous roads. This time, we're heading to Norway. Ready to travel on a road that connects not just cities, but the very elements? Welcome to the Atlantic Ocean Road, nestled amid the fjords in the heart of Norway. This 8-kilometer, 5-mile highway is a true masterpiece of engineering and a challenge to the raw power of nature. What makes this road unique? First, its location. The Atlantic Ocean Road is built right between land and sea. It connects an archipelago of small islands with 8 bridges. But these aren't just ordinary bridges. They are architectural marvels that seem to defy gravity. The most famous of them is the Storsjøneda Bridge, which appears to soar into the sky and disappear on the horizon. It's an utterly breathtaking sight. However, the Atlantic Ocean Road isn't just about beauty. It's a road that will test your nerves, especially if you happen to drive it in bad weather. Why is it dangerous? This road directly faces the Atlantic Ocean, which means weather conditions here can change almost every few minutes. On a sunny day, it looks like a scene from a travel brochure: blue skies, turquoise waters, and smooth asphalt. But when a storm rolls in, it feels like you've stepped into a disaster movie. Giant waves crash against the bridges, sending spray several feet into the air. Some drivers admit that during such moments, the road feels more like a water park, just without the safety vests. Sometimes, the waves are so powerful they completely engulf vehicles crossing the bridges. And during the winter months, ice and snow transform the asphalt into a real icy track. Despite its dangers, the Atlantic Ocean Road is also a road for those who love freedom. It's perfect for those who love traveling by car, motorcycle, or even bicycle. It has everything: sharp turns, steep inclines, and breathtaking views of the open ocean. There are special viewing points for tourists where you can step out of your vehicle, breathe in the salty sea air, and take several pictures. But be careful, strong winds can easily knock you off your feet. Construction of this road began in 1983. Initially planned as a critical transport artery, it eventually became something much greater. Builders spent 6 years struggling with nature, facing storms, waves, and piercing winds. It's no wonder that locals consider the Atlantic Ocean Road a monument to human endurance and determination. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments which of these roads you would dare to venture on. Safe travels.